Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story is of insane quality that'll have you craving more. She accepts her invitation and now enters the realm of the unknown. Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night. Ah!
Curiosity got the best of me, and I found myself navigating a labyrinthine road that led to Lecter's grand estate. The imposing mansion stood at the end of a long, tree-lined driveway, bathed in an eerie twilight glow. Despite my reservations, I stepped out of my car and made my way to the front door. Lecter greeted me with a polished smile. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, he exuded an air of sophistication that contrasted sharply with the rumors of his macabre tastes.
Hello, Miss Waller. I'm delighted you accepted my invitation. Please come inside. Let me take your coat. The night's feast is prepared, and I'm looking forward to dining with you this evening.
We made our way to the dining room, a lavish space adorned with exquisite artwork and antique furniture. The table was set with fine china and crystal, and the aroma of a sumptuous meal filled the air. Lecter presented the evening's menu in meticulous detail, describing each course with the passion of a true gourmet.
Our first course is a delicate amuse-bouche of seared foie gras, drizzled with a reduction of aged balsamic vinegar and served on a bed of microgreens harvested from my own garden.
As I tasted the decadent foie gras, I couldn't help but be impressed by the depth of flavor and the perfect balance of textures. The wine he had chosen, a 1985 Chateau Margaux, complemented the dish beautifully, its velvety tannins enhancing the richness of the foie gras. The evening continued with a succulent lobster bisque, a tender rack of lamb with a rosemary demi-glace, and a dessert of dark chocolate soufflé. Each course was a masterpiece, a symphony of flavors and textures that left me in awe of Lecter's culinary prowess. As we savored our meal, Lecter turned the conversation to more personal matters, delving into my career choice and background. His questions were unnerving, probing into the darkest corners of my psyche. He analyzed me with a precision that left me feeling exposed and vulnerable.
So, what inspired your decision to become a food critic? To delve into the intricacies of culinary experiences and offering your insights?
I hesitated, my mind clouded by the wine's effects. I suppose I've always had a discerning palate. I wanted to share my love for fine cuisine with the world. But the world also needs to know what fine cuisine truly means, or else we're all lost. Lecter nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving mine.
Ah, I see. So you do value the essence of the meal, or rather what nature has to offer, the very soul of the dish. A discerning palate indeed, but not a palate I cannot satisfy.
Before I could react, a wave of dizziness washed over me and the world went black. When I awoke, I found myself strapped to a cold steel surgical table. Panic coursed through my veins as I struggled against my restraints. The room was dimly lit, and the pungent smell of antiseptic hung in the air. Lecter materialized from the shadows, his face bathed in the eerie glow of a nearby surgical lamp.
Ah, Ms. Waller, you see, what happened is quite simple. You will be the pièce de résistance on my menu for this weekend, a special dish for your critic comrades who sought to end my culinary career. Don't worry, I believe they will give your exquisite flavor a resounding 5-star rating. And for the record, you are correct in your assumption that my meal from the restaurant was not beef at all. Your taste buds are indeed talented. Ironically, your review, on the other hand, was quite rude and tasteless. I will not condone such absurdity.
Horror washed over me, as I realized the true nature of my predicament. Trapped in Lecter's nightmarish world, I could only pray for a miracle that would save me from becoming the next course on his twisted menu. I pleaded, "Please, Hannibal, there must be another way." Lecter regarded me with a cold, calculating gaze.
Ah, Miss Waller, within the intricate tapestry of my reality, the concept of redemption and second opportunities seems as elusive as a mirage in the desert. The path I tread is one fraught with consequences, and these consequences are the toll one inevitably incurs when their journey intersects with a figure such as myself.
As he prepared his surgical instruments with meticulous care, I couldn't help but reflect on the tragic turn my evening had taken. In a twist of fate, my quest for culinary perfection had led me to a dinner table of doom, where Hannibal Lecter himself would orchestrate my tragic demise.
Any last words, Miss Waller? My eyes will be the last you shine to see.
Swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. "I regret the words I wrote, Hannibal," I whispered, "but I never thought they would lead to this." With a small, chilling smile, Hannibal Lecter leaned in closer and whispered,
"But my dear food critic, there's beauty even in the darkest of dishes, and now your essence will live through me. You have done well in your pursuit. I will take it from here. Perhaps I will serve your silver tongue as a braised lingua soufflé to complement your exceptional palate. Goodbye, Miss Waller."
The shockwave knocked me to the ground, and I watched in disbelief as Jason's body twitched, then slowly began to rise. He was back, more monstrous than ever. His eyes glowed with an unnatural malevolence. His strength seemed otherworldly.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story is of a mistreated kid that became a man of the undead. More so, the iconic madman of Crystal Lake. I would say he would haunt your nightmares, but that's a monster for another tale. So lock your door, grab your weapon, enjoy, and have a terrifyingly good night. Ah!
My name is Tommy Jarvis, and I remember that fateful night in 1984 like it was yesterday. My sister Trish and I lived with our mother in the woods near Crystal Lake. Our parents were divorced, and it was just the three of us. Little did we know that our quiet life was about to be shattered by terror. It all started when a group of teenagers rented a cabin at Higgins Haven. We could hear the distant laughter and music from our home, but we paid them no mind until the screams began. One by one, those kids were slaughtered by the vengeful spirit of Jason Vorhees. Trish and I were the only ones left alive. I knew we had to do something drastic to survive. I remember the stories of Jason as a child, how he drowned in the lake due to the negligence of camp counselors. I decided to shave my head, just like he looked as a boy. I believed that if I could mimic his appearance, I could lure him into a trap. As Trish fought for her life against Jason, I picked up a machete. With all the strength I could muster, I struck him, knocking his mask off. He turned to face her. That's when I took my chance. I delivered a killing blow to him, or so I thought. My panic kept hacking at his lifeless body until it was unrecognizable. Later I was sent to a clinic, but the nightmares didn't stop. I knew deep down that Jason wasn't truly dead. Couldn't be. 5 years later, in 1989, I found myself at Pinehurst Youth Development Center, a place for teenagers with mental disabilities. The memories of that night at Higgins Haven stayed with me. I was determined to put them to rest. Life after that monster was never the same for me. The memories of my encounter with Jason haunted my every waking moment. Nightmares plagued my sleep, and I couldn't escape the feeling that he was still out there, biding his time. Counselors did their best to help us reintegrate into society, but they couldn't erase the trauma of that night. I was labeled as a troubled kid with a dark past. That reputation stuck with me. As the years went by, I tried to move on. I left Pinehurst and attempted to lead a normal life. I even made a friend, Alan Hawes, who shared my fascination with the macabre. Together, we decided to confront the past and put an end to the nightmare once and for all. We planned to cremate Jason's body, believing that destroying him would finally bring closure. We journeyed to the cemetery where Jason lay buried, our hearts heavy with fear and determination. The night was ominous, clouds gathering in the sky as if the heavens themselves warned against our mission. As we dug up the grave, I couldn't help but tremble with a sense of impending doom. When we uncovered Jason's decomposing corpse, a surge of anger and terror coursed through me. The memories of that fateful night at Higgins Haven flooded back, and I snapped. With a metal fence post in my hands, I repeatedly stabbed his lifeless body, my rage blinding me to the consequences. And then, it happened. Lightning split the sky, a jagged bolt of electricity striking the fence post. The shockwave knocked me to the ground, and I watched in disbelief as Jason's body twitched, then slowly began to rise. He was back, more monstrous than ever. His eyes glowed with an unnatural malevolence. His strength seemed otherworldly. Alan screamed in terror as Jason turned his attention toward us. I knew we had to run to get help, but the fear rooted me to the spot. Before I could react, Jason struck. His hand closed around Alan's throat, lifting him effortlessly into the air. With a sickening crunch, he snapped Alan's neck, ending his life in an instant. I staggered back, horrified and filled with grief for my friend. Jason's gaze turned to me, and he advanced with slow, deliberate steps. I fled, desperate to escape the unstoppable monster. But there was no escaping fate. Sheriff Garris, who had dealt with me years before, found me and believed I was the cause of this new nightmare. He locked me up, convinced that I was a danger to society. He also wanted to keep me away from his daughter, Megan, who had developed a mutual attraction to me. It seemed that no matter where I went, the curse of Jason Voorhees followed, destroying everything in its path. But Megan didn't give up on me. She believed my story and was determined to help me stop Jason once and for all. We gathered our courage and returned to Crystal Lake, knowing that our lives were at stake. Megan's love and determination gave me the strength to face the horror that awaited us. As we confronted Jason on that dark, foreboding lake, I knew it was our last chance. I had a plan to chain a boulder to his neck and sink him to the bottom, just as he had been as a child. We lured him into the water, but as I attempted to execute the plan, Jason's inhuman strength prevailed. He pulled me into the icy depths of Crystal Lake. I felt myself drowning, my lungs burning for air. I was helpless, and it seemed that my journey would end at the hands of the very monster I had tried to defeat. But Megan, my savior, refused to let me die. She used the boat's motor to damage Jason and free me from his grasp. With a combination of sheer determination and CPR, she brought me back from the brink of death. Gasping for air, I watched as Megan's heroic efforts paid off. It was finally over, or so we thought. As we looked back at the lake, we saw him, still down there, waiting for someone to set him free, to continue his reign of terror. Jason Voorhees was an evil that could never truly be vanquished, only contained. So, the nightmare persisted, lurking beneath the surface of Crystal Lake. A chilling reminder that some horrors can never be fully extinguished.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story is of Jack Skellington, the nightmare before Christmas, the Pumpkin King. But how did he become this horror of the night, the Halloween legend? Let's find out. Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night.
In the darkest corners of the pumpkin patch, where moonlight dared not touch and the wind whispered ancient secrets, I, Jack, was born. Not as an ordinary pumpkin, mind you, but as something far more sinister. My birth was orchestrated by forces beyond mortal comprehension, a twisted dance of malevolent spirits and unholy incantations. Upon that fateful night, under the blood-red harvest moon, a deranged sorcerer seeking ultimate power carved wicked symbols into my skin, channeling the essence of the underworld itself. The air crackled with dark energy as he chanted incantations older than time, and my once lifeless form pulsed with a malevolent life. With each chant, my eyes flickered with an otherworldly light, and my grin stretched wide, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. I became Jack, the skull-headed Pumpkin King, a creature destined to bring terror to the hearts of mortals. My newfound existence was one of horror and malice. On that first Halloween night, I rose from the pumpkin patch, carried by spectral winds that howled in the darkness. My skeletal fingers flexed, and I roamed the shadowy streets, my hollow eyes glowing with an unholy fire. The mere sight of me struck fear into the bravest souls, and my sinister laughter echoed through the night. I reveled in the fear I inspired, delighting in the screams of terrified children and the horrified gasps of adults. I became a legend, a story parents whispered to their children to keep them in line. But my thirst for terror was insatiable, and as the years passed, I sought to amplify my malevolence. In the centuries that followed, I learned to harness the power of fear. I could manipulate shadows, conjure nightmarish illusions, and twist the minds of those unfortunate enough to cross my path. With each Halloween that dawned, my power grew, and my reign of terror extended to new heights. Yet, with great power came a terrible price. As the centuries passed, I began to wither, or age, as one would say. I longed for something more, a way to forever turn the eternal cycle of fear and torment. It was then that I stumbled upon a forbidden ritual, a dark incantation that promised immortality in exchange dark servitude. Driven by desperation, I performed the ritual on my favorite day of the year, Halloween night, under a blood moon much like the one that had birthed me. The air crackled with malevolent energy as I chanted the ancient words, and I felt my essence merging with the very fabric of the cold, dark universe. In that moment, I transcended the limitations of mortality. I became an immortal entity, free from the constraints of time and space. But this newfound power came at a terrible cost. My soul was forever tainted, leaving only the essence of fear and darkness. Just how I like it. In the bleak shadows of Halloween night, I, Jack, the immortal Pumpkin King, devised a sinister plan that would plunge the world into eternal darkness. With each passing century, my power grew and my malevolence deepened. I had become the embodiment of fear, an entity capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality. In the sinister depths of my being, a twisted desire took hold, a desire to make every living soul experience their worst nightmares for all time. I yearned to feed on the raw essence of fear, to harvest the terror that blossomed in the hearts of humanity. My goal was clear: to enslave every mind, twist every dream, and shroud the world in an everlasting nightmare. My ancient knowledge of dark arts allowed me to craft a ritual, one that would harness the deepest fears of humanity and amplify them into a horrifying reality. The ingredients were macabre, the chants whispered in long-forgotten tongues. As the blood-red moon hung low in the sky and the winds carried the chilling howls of lost souls, I began the incantation. The very air crackled with malevolent energy as I unleashed the ritual upon the world. Across continents, people found themselves trapped within their most dreadful nightmares, their subconscious fears clawing at their sanity. The sky turned ashen, the sun forever obscured by ominous clouds. Every corner of the world was tainted with terror, and I reveled in the symphony of screams and despair. As the days turned to nights, and the nights into eternities, humanity withered under the weight of their fears. Their minds shattered, their bodies wasted away, and their souls grew weak. Each person's worst nightmares played out endlessly before their eyes, a never-ending loop of horror from which there was no escape. With every moment that passed, I absorbed the fear, drawing it into myself, becoming more powerful than ever before. The souls of the terrified were slowly consumed, their essence merging with mine, making me an unstoppable force, an eternal darkness that knew no bounds. The world became a desolate wasteland, a nightmarish landscape where twisted creatures roamed, born from the darkest recesses of human imagination. Rivers ran black with despair, and the very ground trembled with the agony of the tormented. The remnants of civilization were drowned in a sea of perpetual terror. In this eternal night, I stood as the ruler of a world trapped in an unending nightmare. The cries of the damned were but a haunting melody, a reminder of my absolute power. I had achieved my dark purpose. Every soul was mine, their worst nightmares eternally replayed, their beings reduced to mere husks. And so the world met its end on Halloween night, not in a cataclysmic explosion, but in a slow, agonizing descent into madness. The last flicker of hope was extinguished, and the world became a realm of eternal fear, forever under my dominion. I, Jack, the immortal Pumpkin King, had achieved my ultimate triumph, and the world was mine to torment for all eternity.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story will beckon your imagination. According to the dualism perspective, the mind, or perhaps the very essence of the soul, exists as a non-physical substance, while the body is compromised of ordinary matter. But what if that enigmatic substance could be harnessed to be made real and wielded for nefarious purposes? Let's find out. Enjoy and have a terrifying good night.
My name is Dr. Henry Jekyll, and I must confess the darkest secret that has plagued my conscience for far too long. What began as an experiment to understand the duality of human nature has spiraled into a nightmare of unimaginable proportions. In the heart of Victorian London, I, along with my sinister alter ego, Mr. Edward Hyde, have unleashed a malevolent toxin upon the unsuspecting elite of this city, binding them to our will. It all started with a simple potion, a concoction that promised to separate the good from the evil within a person. The potion, a mixture of chemicals and alchemical knowledge, was initially meant to be a scientific breakthrough, an exploration of the hidden depths of human nature. Little did I know the depths to which I would descend. At first, it was Mr. Hyde who emerged only during the darkest hours of the night under the cloak of London's shadows. He was the embodiment of my inner demons, the beast lurking within my soul. Together, we reveled in the freedom of unleashing our most sinister desires. But as time passed, we realized the true potential of our concoction. Our malevolent plan took shape when we decided to unleash our toxin upon London's most influential and wealthy. We clandestinely infiltrated their exclusive gatherings, their opulent soirees, and their private clubs. The unsuspecting elite, who believed themselves to be untouchable, became our unwitting victims. We chose bourbon as our vector. Its amber depths provided the perfect camouflage for our insidious creation. Each drop contained a trace of our duality toxin, a substance that would slowly erode the moral fibers of those who indulged in it. It was a subtle but effective transformation, one that unfolded over months, gradually turning the city's high society into our loyal minions. As they sipped their tainted bourbon, their personalities began to shift. Kindness gave way to cruelty, generosity to greed, and compassion to callousness. These changes were so subtle that no one suspected the true cause. Friends turned against friends, families crumbled, and the very fabric of society unraveled. Our reign of terror remained concealed in the shadows, hidden beneath the respectable facade of Dr. Jekyll. Hyde reveled in the chaos he had sown, while I, Jekyll, was consumed by guilt and despair. I had unleashed a new monster upon the world, and there was no turning back. As the elite of London succumbed to our influence, they unwittingly began to further our dark agenda. They used their power and influence to corrupt the city's institutions, turning London into a cesspool of vice and malevolence. It was a nightmarish transformation, and I was powerless to stop it. My dual existence became a living hell. I watched in horror as Hyde's insidious plan unfolded, and I realized that the line between us had blurred beyond recognition. I had created another evil, and now I was complicit in its reign of darkness. This is my confession, my plea for redemption. I must find a way to reverse the effects of our duality toxin, to free the souls of the elite who have become our mindless minions. But time is running out, and the darkness that Hyde and I have unleashed upon London threatens to consume us all. Hyde knew this would happen, and he is reveling in it, I am sure. I can't hold him back. It seems he has a life of his own
now.
Ah, the sweet taste of success and fresh nightly air. I am Mr. Edward Hyde, and the world, or at least the dark, hidden corners of London, is mine for the taking. Dr. Jekyll's pitiful conscience was a minor inconvenience, but even he could not resist the allure of power and wealth. As the toxin flowed through my veins, I reveled in the transformation it brought, a transformation that was no longer just confined to the night. With a wicked grin on my face, I began my campaign to control London's elite and expand my empire. The high-class bourbon shops became my kingdom, and I was the puppet master pulling the strings from the shadows. The unsuspecting shopkeepers, drawn in by the promise of incredible income, willingly played their part in my malevolent plan. They unknowingly became my distributors, spreading the toxin to the upper echelons of society. As the toxic bourbon poured into the glasses of London's wealthiest and most influential, their souls slowly succumbed to my influence. Their morals and consciences eroded, replaced by a lust for power and dominance. They became my willing pawns, carrying out my commands and furthering my sinister agenda. The riches poured in like a river of gold, and I reveled in my newfound wealth. I lived in opulence, surrounded by the trappings of success that had once been denied to me. Lavish mansions, fine clothing, and the most exquisite indulgences became my daily life. My ambition knew no bounds. I aspired to control London itself, to become the puppeteer behind every decision made in this sprawling metropolis. I began to infiltrate the political circles, using my minions to manipulate elections and control key positions within the government. The once proud institutions of this city crumbled under my influence, replaced by a corrupt and malevolent regime. But with great power came great paranoia. I knew that my reign of darkness could be threatened at any moment, and I became increasingly ruthless in my pursuit of control. Anyone who dared to stand against me was swiftly dealt with, their lives extinguished like candles in the wind. My dual existence, once a source of torment for Dr. Jekyll, had become my greatest asset. I reveled in the freedom it gave me, the ability to switch between personas at will, concealing my true intentions and manipulating those around me. I was a master of deception, and London was my chessboard. As the days turned into months and the months into years, I watched with satisfaction as London crumbled under my control. The city's once moral citizens had become twisted and corrupt, their souls irreversibly tainted by my toxin. I had achieved my goal of dominance, and there seemed to be no force capable of stopping me. They never gave my other self a chance to show his discovery to society, a scientific breakthrough, if I would say so myself. And I do. So now they shall be unwilling participants in its rise to overthrow their perfect little lives. But in the depths of my dark triumph, a nagging thought remained, a shadow of doubt that whispered to me in the still of the night. Was there any part of Dr. Jekyll left within me, a lingering ember of his conscience that might one day rise and undo all that I had accomplished? Only time would tell, as the city of London lay enslaved in the grip of my malevolence, and I, Mr. Hyde, basked in the intoxicating power and riches that come with it. Goodbye, Dr. Jekyll. Hello, immortality.
Many adventurers and treasure seekers attempted to find my chest, lured by the promise of untold riches and the mysteries of the ancient world. They ventured into the heart of the desert, drawn by the whispers of forgotten legends. Yet, none succeeded in unlocking the chest without suffering a brutal fate, and the secrets it held remained hidden, like a curse waiting to be unleashed.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story is a god of funeral rites, protector of graves, and a guide to the underworld. What happens when he awakens from his eternal prison? Let's find out. Enjoy, and have a terrifyingly good night.
I was born in a time long forgotten by the living, a time when the pyramids of Egypt rose to touch the heavens, and the land was ruled by pharaohs and gods. My name is Anubis, and my life was one of terror and eternal exile. In the days of old, I was revered as the guardian of the dead, the one who guided their souls through the treacherous journey to the afterlife. My visage was that of a jackal-headed man, a creature both revered and feared by those who lived along the banks of the Nile. I was associated with the funerary cult, tasked with the solemn duty of ensuring that the souls of the departed found their way to the hall of Ma'at, where their hearts would be weighed against the feather of truth. But as the centuries passed, the sands of time eroded the memories of the living. The pyramids crumbled, and the pharaohs were reduced to dust and bones.
the people's beliefs shifted, and my role as the conductor of souls faded into myth. I became an ancient relic, forgotten by the world above. It was during this time of obscurity that I found myself trapped in a chest deep within an old, long-forgotten pyramid. The chest was ornately decorated, bearing the symbols of my forgotten glory. For centuries, I remained imprisoned, my consciousness trapped in the darkness of the chest, my power dwindling with each passing year. Many adventurers and treasure seekers attempted to find my chest, lured by the promise of untold riches and the mysteries of the ancient world. They ventured into the heart of the desert, drawn by the whispers of forgotten legends. Yet, none succeeded in unlocking the chest without suffering a brutal fate, and the secrets it held remained hidden, like a curse waiting to be unleashed. Until one fateful day, an archaeologist, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a disregard for ancient warnings, stumbled upon the pyramid that held my prison. With the aid of his primitive technology and an unwavering determination, he managed to unlock the chest and break the seal that held me captive. As the lid of the chest creaked open, my darkness spilled forth like a suffocating gas. It enveloped him, and he let out a blood-curdling scream as my ancient soul surged into his body. An agonizing transformation began. The process was gruesome and painful, bones cracked and flesh twisting off his skin. His voice was no longer his own, and I, Anubis, slowly but surely returned to the world of the living. With my newfound vessel and an insatiable thirst for vengeance, I emerged from the chest, leaving behind the mangled, lifeless body of man. My first act was to unleash my wrath upon those who had dared to disturb the ancient graves. The archaeologists, unaware of the terror they had unleashed, met their gruesome end at my hands. The curse that bound me within the ancient tomb could no longer be contained, their blood staining the sacred sands of my desert. Their lifeless bodies lay strewn about the pyramid's chamber, a testament to the perilous folly of disturbing the slumber of the ancient ones. Now that I am free, I shall awake Osiris from his rest and recapture this mortal world once more.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story is of a enigma that lingers in the shadows, darker than a coldest alley. A journalist who dares to pursue hidden truths. Should some secrets be left undisturbed, concealed in obscurity from whence they came? Let's find out. Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night.
My name is Jim Carver. I'm a journalist in the heart of Chicago, and I've seen things that would make your skin crawl. This voice recording is not a work of fiction. It's a dire warning to this plagued society that nothing is as it seems. It all began with a series of bizarre occurrences. People disappearing at night without a trace, and witnesses claiming to see grotesque beings snatching them. With families broken apart with no answers from police. The city that never sleeps was harboring a sinister secret, one that I was determined to uncover. As I delved deeper into my investigation, I stumbled upon a pattern that sent shivers down my spine. The city itself seemed to be having darker nights. Strange symbols and designs painted the sky, casting an eerie glow over the skyline. The pouring rain with no end. Right then I felt I was onto something big. I became consumed by my quest to reveal the truth. I scoured old manuscripts, interviewed the few survivors who dared to speak, and followed leads that took me to the most forgotten corners of the city. There were whispers of beings that existed in the shadows, monsters that only revealed themselves when the moon hung high in the sky. I had to prove their existence and unveil the horrors lurking in the darkness. But as my investigation intensified, I realized I was being watched. Shadows would follow me, and I would catch glimpses of deformed figures lurking just beyond my vision. Paranoia became my constant companion, and the lines between what was real continued to blur. That same night, nightmares began. Those damn things. Vivid, terrifying dreams that felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced sleeping. In the midst of these dreams, a hideous voice whispered to me, promising answers. It claimed to know the truth about the creatures and offered to guide me to the source of their power. The Nightmare King, as it referred to it. It was willing to help me bring an end to this reign of terror, but at a price. I would need to allow him to follow me while I'm awake. Desperation clouded my judgment. I wanted these disappearances to end. So yeah, I reluctantly agreed to let the creature assist me. Poor fool. Night after night, it guided me through the twisted pathways of the city, showing me visions of the Nightmare King's lair, a place of horror made real. The closer I got to the truth, the more dangerous the journey became. The monsters that had been pursuing me were closing in, their presence growing stronger in both my dreams and waking hours. As the end of my investigation approached, I began to question whether I had made a grave mistake. The monster's voice in my nightmares grew more demanding, more sinister. Its promises of assistance was obviously more and more like a trap I was walking closer and closer into.
And I realized that I was no longer in control of my own destiny.
But I must find answers. The night had arrived. Guided by the creature's instructions, I found myself standing before the monstrous king. It was a sight that no words could adequately describe. A nightmare made flesh, a creature born of pure darkness and fear. It grinned at me, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. In that moment, I understood the truth. As I figured, the creature that had been guiding me was not an ally, but a conspirator, a minion manipulating me into doing its bidding. I anticipated as such, but my leads were getting me nowhere, so this was my best option. I was wrong. I'm terrified out of my mind, and I don't know what to do next. The Monster King's laughter echoed in my ears as the realization hit me like a physical punch to the ribs.
I own you now, Mr. Carver. You will do my bidding. This city is mine.
I had unwittingly become a pawn in a game beyond my comprehension. As the battle between my sanity and the horrors around me raged, I fought against the overwhelming darkness. But it was a battle I couldn't win. The monsters closed in, their grotesque forms overwhelming my senses. And in that final moment, I knew the truth. They wanted my vessel so they can spread more throughout the city. I had not become just another victim, another forgotten soul lost to the shadows. No, I became something worse. I'm now one of them. A nightmare in the dark, a creature around a corner. I now harbor evil as if a vehicle for demise. So here I am, penning down my warning to a society that may never truly understand the horrors that lurk in the corners of our world. My name is Jim Carver, and this is my cautionary tale. Give up. For in a world where nothing is as it seems, where nightmares become reality, remember that even the search for truth can lead to a darkness beyond imagination, a darkness from which there is no escape. If you need help, come find me.
I will be waiting for you.
Welcome to Midnight's Tale. Here, where the unknown takes its darkest form, we unveil stories that dare not be spoken in the light of day. stories that creep beneath your skin and shivers down your spine. I am your guide, Midnight, your storyteller through the chilling depths of fear and uncertainty. Tonight, our tale will take you on a journey beyond the veil of reality, into the world where fear reigns supreme, where loss leaves scars that never fade, and where reflection reveals the twisted truths lurking within. Enjoy, and have a terrifyingly good night.
I never thought I'd find myself back in that old childhood home, the place where everything had started and ended all those years ago. My name's Thomas, and this is the story of the chilling mystery that unfolded when I returned to the house where my twin brother James had vanished without a trace during our teenage years. You see, the one thing that had always unsettled us was that creepy mirror hanging on the wall in James's room. We used to joke with our parents that a strange face would appear in the mirror, some sinister presence lurking just beyond our vision. But of course, they never believed us. They brushed it off as youthful imagination running wild. As the years rolled on, I thought I was over that old childhood fear. But the moment I stepped into the house, a shiver raced down my spine. The memories came flooding back, and I couldn't help but glance at the dreaded mirror. And then, as if on cue, that shadowy figure materialized in the mirror, a phantom-like hand gesturing for me to follow. It was the stuff of nightmares, and the terror I felt was all too real. At first I questioned my own sanity. Was I the only one who could see it now? One sleepless night as the moonlight bathed the room in an eerie glow, my twin brother, Jacob, whom I hadn't seen in years, stood in front of the mirror. He was determined to confront his fear, to prove to himself that there was nothing lurking in there. His fingers touched the cold glass surface, and in an instant he was gone. The room echoed with Jacob's frantic pounding on the mirror, his muffled screams for me to wake up. Heart pounding, I scrambled to my feet, my eyes locked onto the mirror, and there he was, surrounded by towering, translucent figures with eyes that gleamed like ethereal lanterns. I called out his name, my voice trembling, but it was too late. In a blink, he was yanked into a swirling blue ring that looked like a portal, leaving me alone in the room. Fear turned my legs to jelly as I sprinted to my parents' room, their comforting presence suddenly all I craved. But when I threw open the door, their beds were empty, the room devoid of any sign of life. The entire house had become a ghostly echo of what it used to be. The horrifying realization hit me like a freight train. It wasn't Jacob who had been taken into the mirror, it was me. I had spent my entire life trapped in this mirror dimension, reliving the same day over and over again, forever searching for my brother. Days turned into years, my existence a ceaseless cycle of frustration and desperation. I haunted the old house, trying to piece together any clue, any way to escape this twisted nightmare. And then, one fateful day, I looked into that accursed mirror and saw myself as a teenager, staring back at me with a mixture of hope and fear. It was a shock, a glimmer of the impossible. With a trembling hand, I raised it to the glass and waved, beckoning myself to come closer. And in that heart-stopping moment, I realized the truth. This was my chance, my only chance. My fingers touched the mirror, and before I could register what was happening, I was yanked forward, the barrier between reality and reflection shattering like fragile glass. I was pulled into the abyss, my reality folding in on itself. Darkness swallowed me, and then there was nothing but a loop, a never-ending cycle of mirror dimensions and trapped souls. I had pulled myself into that mirror, a prisoner of my own past and fear, destined to forever chase my own reflection. And so, dear listener, as you look into your own mirror, remember this tale. There are forces beyond our understanding, echoes of the past that can entrap even the bravest of souls. Be cautious, for you never know what might be waiting on the other side, lurking just beyond your reflection.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story is of a covenant and how far it would go to keep humanity safe. What are the things lurking within? that unknown vessel called a church? What are their determinations? What do they seek to accomplish, and why? So many secrets that we will now uncover. Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night.
I never expected to find myself in this situation, but here I am, a newly made nun in a church that harbours a terrifying secret. At first, the convent of St. Agnes seemed like the perfect sanctuary, a place where I could dedicate my life to serving God and humanity. Little did I know the horrors that lay beneath its serene exterior. The first time I stepped into the church, the atmosphere felt strangely oppressive, and the dimly lit candles cast eerie shadows on the stone walls. The other nuns greeted me with warm smiles, but their eyes held a sadness that I couldn't quite understand. As the days turned into weeks, I started noticing odd behaviours among the sisters. They would sometimes mutter to themselves in strange languages, their voices echoing through the empty hallways. At night, I could hear faint whispers and laughter, which only added to the growing unease that gnawed at my soul. One evening, as I knelt before the altar, my rosary beads slipping through my trembling fingers, I noticed Sister Mary Catherine, the oldest and most devoted nun among us, acting particularly peculiar. Her eyes were devoid of emotion, and her voice took on a sinister tone as she led our nightly prayers. That night, as I lay in my narrow cot, unable to sleep, I heard the faint sound of chanting emanating from the chapel. I slipped out of bed, curious and fearful of what I might find. As I approached the chapel, the chanting grew louder, and I pushed the heavy wooden doors open slightly, just enough to peek inside. What I saw within the chapel still haunts my nightmares. The other nuns, my sisters, were gathered around the altar, their eyes vacant, their voices filled with an unnatural resonance. In the flickering candlelight, I saw their forms contort, their bodies writhing as if they were possessed by malevolent entities. Sister Mary Catherine stood at the centre, her body arching backward, her face twisted into a grotesque mask of agony. Her voice, now unearthly and guttural, spoke in a language I couldn't comprehend. It was then that I realized the truth. Each nun was a vessel for a different demon from hell. They were willingly sacrificing their souls to trap these demons inside their bodies, all in the name of saving humanity. Terrified and trembling, I backed away from the chapel, my heart pounding in my chest. The revelation was too much to bear. These women, who had taken vows of piety and devotion, were engaged in a dark and sinister ritual to prevent these demons from wreaking havoc upon the world. In the following days, I couldn't shake the images of the possessed nuns from my mind. The weight of the secret I now carried, the knowledge that the safety of humanity rested on the shoulders of those willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, weighed heavily on me. I found myself torn between my initial horror and a growing sense of duty. As I continued to witness the dedication of my sisters, their unwavering commitment to safeguarding humanity from the malevolent forces of hell, a transformation began within me. I started to see the nobility in their sacrifice, the selflessness in their actions. They were willing to endure the torment of demon possession to protect the world from the horrors that lurked in the shadows. One night, I sought out Sister Mary Catherine, the one who had seemed the most possessed and tormented of all. I found her in the chapel, kneeling before the altar, her eyes distant, her voice filled with an eerie resonance. I approached her, my fear giving way to a deep understanding of her sacrifice. "Sister Mary Catherine," I whispered, "I understand now.
I see the purpose of it all. I am willing to join you, to accept my duty, to become a vessel for a demon if that's what it takes to save humanity. Sister Mary Catherine turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting mine. In that moment, I saw a spark of recognition, a glimmer of hope, as if my acceptance had lifted a burden from her soul. She nodded, and in her eyes, I found not only acceptance but also a shared sense of purpose. From that day forward, I embraced my role as a guardian of humanity. I willingly surrendered myself to the same dark ritual that had bound my sisters to their demons. As the entity entered my body, I felt an overwhelming sense of power and responsibility. Together with my sisters, we would continue to pray, to strengthen the barriers that kept the demons at bay, and to ensure that they could never escape into the world. In the end, I had become a willing sacrifice, a vessel for a demon, but it was a sacrifice made out of love for humanity. And as we prayed together each day, I knew that our collective sacrifice was a beacon of hope, a shield protecting the world from the horrors of hell, one prayer at a time. Matthew 12, verse 45. Then the demons go and take with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. The final condition of that person is worse than the first. That is how it will be with this wicked generation.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story will capture your imagination and take it to a forbidden place you didn't know existed, where no mortal survives to see another day. Maybe have a steak, grab your favorite drink, enjoy, and have a terrifying good night. Okay, what's next on the list? The prison warden, a cunning vampire who goes by the name Victor Draconis. He apparently takes sadistic pleasure in torment. His gruesome secrets have plunged his town into desolation. He doesn't merely execute death row inmates, he devours their very essence. Blah blah blah, relishing their suffering as he drains them of life. Okay. Well, the contract from the Vatican is paying me triple this time around. I guess it's time to get back to work, putting an end to this reign of terror, regardless. God, why is it always the vampires that are in the middle of nowhere? Not a bar in sight. To infiltrate this nightmare of a prison, I devised a perilous plan. I intentionally committed a heinous crime, one that would ensure my place on death row. It's okay, those psychopaths deserved it anyway. It's a calculated risk, my only way to get close enough to this warden, and finally put an end to his horrifying feast. The prison itself is a fortress of despair, its towering stone walls echoing with the cries of the condemned. As I await my execution day, doubt gnaws at my resolve. Nothing a cigar won't fix after I get out of here. If I get out of here. Think, man. Come on, think. There's gotta be something in this cell. Seems one of these bolts are loose in the wall. That can come in handy. The price I paid for this gambit outweighs the reward. But I hate vampires, especially the ones that sit comfortably while all around them suffer. Besides, there's no turning back now. I'm committed to this contract. God, I could use a drink right now. Today, the day of the reckoning, Mirage. and I'm led, shackled and resigned, to the gallows. Victor Draconis, the warden with an insatiable drink for suffering, greets me with a chilling grin.
Hello, Noah. I've read exploits of your bounty hunter undertakings, so infamous and warranted. It was only a matter of time before you arrived in my domain.
The anticipation of adding me to his grim menu gleams in his crimson eyes, but I don't plan on becoming a vampire steak dinner. The nights of honoring yourself will soon come to an end, Victor. As the hangman comes closer with the noose, I headbutt him in the chin, breaking his rotten teeth. Using the bolt I sharpened earlier, I break free from the restraints, catching both the guards and the warden by surprise. Chaos erupts within the prison as I fight my way towards the warden, stabbing one of the guards in the eye and slicing the other one's throat before he even knew what was happening. Next, Draconis. Our fight is a brutal contest of willpower, my fist punching his fangs out of his stone-cold face and claws slashing at me in all directions. It seems he is a formidable adversary, his vampiric strength and speed matched only by his hungry rage. However, my resolve to end his dark reign surpasses even his supernatural prowess. With a final desperate maneuver, I thrust the metal bolt into his unbeaten heart. The warden's unearthly scream pierces the night, his malevolent form crumbling to ash before my eyes. I've triumphed, but victory comes at a grave cost, to say the least. During our savage struggle, Draconis bit me, passing on his vampiric curse. I can feel the change, the insidious transformation taking hold, the insatiable thirst for blood growing stronger by the second. The thought of becoming the very abomination I've devoted my life to eradicating is unbearable. I think I'm gonna sit down for a second. Feel a bit woozy, kinda strange. Oh, there it is. Just felt my heart stop. I'm officially a vampire. I didn't expect today to go this kind of way. While I'm in the warden's fancy-ass desk chair, the banging on the office door was getting worse. They're almost inside. Those guards from below that heard the fight. Keep going, fellas. You've almost got it. Those morons. I guess the guards don't like that I killed their paycheck. Wait, is that a bottle of whiskey? The only person I could think of right now is Alice, and the promise that I made her. I wonder if she's ever gonna find that werewolf that killed her parents. Well, I can't help her if I'm dead. I guess I should open the curtains and let a bit of moonlight inside. Feels good to heal up another vampire bite after a fight. He was a smart one for taking over this prison as a means of shelter, but nothing holds back a wolf from its hunt. And he had an exceptional taste for malt whiskey. Oh, it seems those guards got through the door just in time.
I've suddenly regained my appetite. Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. In tonight's story, we enter a realm where moral lines are blurred. A formidable judge once wielded unwavering authority when a cryptic choice is presented to him. Does he embark on an unexpected journey or accept his fate, unwillingly becoming a piece in a larger, darker game of life and death? Let's find out. Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night. I was once a man, a corrupt judge in the human world. My courtroom was a place of injustice where I passed harsh judgments that favored the rich and powerful while crushing the hopes of the weak. I reveled in my power, intoxicated by the fear in the eyes of those who stood before me. I was merciless and I knew no bounds in my pursuit of control. But as they say, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. My reign of terror came to an abrupt end, one fateful night. I was in my lavish mansion, celebrating another twisted victory, when the room was filled with the deafening roar of a machine gun. Bullets tore through my body, shredding my soul along with it. I fell to the ground, gasping for air, my life slipping away, and then the devil appeared before me. He offered me a choice, a grim ultimatum born from the darkest depths of hell. I could descend into the abyss, to suffer unimaginable torment for all eternity, or I could become the judge of lost souls in the human world, the Grim Reaper. It was a sinister offer, a chance at redemption through servitude. The pain in my dying moments was excruciating, and the memories of my cruel deeds haunted me. Desperation clung to my fading consciousness like a suffocating shroud. I agreed to the devil's terms, choosing to take on the mantle of the Grim Reaper for 100 years in exchange for avoiding the depths of hell. As my essence merged with the cloak of death, I became a spectral figure shrouded in darkness. My new form was haunting, a skeletal visage with a tattered robe that billowed like smoke. My scythe, a wicked instrument of harvest, manifested in my bony grasp. I was reborn as the Grim Reaper, tasked with reaping the souls of the departed and delivering them to their final destinations. At first, I performed my duty begrudgingly, haunted by the memories of my wicked past. But over time, something sinister began to take root within me. The power and authority I wielded over life and death were intoxicating. I reveled in the fear and despair that washed over those I visited. I relished the sight of souls begging for mercy, just as I once had. As the years passed, the 100-year sentence drew to a close, and I found myself torn. I had grown fond of my role as the Grim Reaper. The power and control over the balance of life and death had become my obsession. Instead of returning to the devil's grasp, I approached him with a proposal. I asked to remain as the Grim Reaper for all eternity, to serve as the eternal judge of lost souls, to wield power beyond any mortal's wildest dreams. The devil, amused by my audacity, considered my request. He smiled, revealing his sharp, glistening teeth, and granted my wish. I became eternally bound to my role as the Grim Reaper, a twisted fate of my own making. I would forever roam the human world, reaping souls and carrying them to their destinies, all while the devil watched from the shadows, satisfied with the darkness that had consumed my soul. And so, I continue my never-ending journey, a corrupted soul turned Grim Reaper, forever trapped in the eternal dance of death, wielding my scythe and judge of lost souls, all under the gaze of the devil himself. My descent into darkness was complete, and I had become the embodiment of terror for all eternity. Over time, I had grown accustomed to the eerie silence of my existence and the unrelenting weight of my grim duties. The power I held over life and death had become an addiction, one that I could never quench. But as the years turned into centuries, I began to sense something peculiar. Whispers of other Grim Reapers, of their presence and their unending servitude, reached my hollow ears. I had assumed that I was the sole harbinger of death, forever bound to the devil's cruel pact, but the truth was far more sinister. One moonless night, as I stood on the precipice of another soul's passage, I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly, my hollow sockets locking onto another Grim Reaper, a spectral figure much like myself. His skeletal form was equally as haunting, and his scythe gleamed with immaculate intent. It was then that I understood the horrifying reality. The devil had an army of Grim Reapers all under the same dark contract of eternity. It had been his plan from the beginning, a sinister scheme to create devoted slaves that would transport souls to hell. My heart, or what was left of it, sank as the realization washed over me. We were all pawns in the devil's grand design, bound by contracts that could never be broken. I was not unique, not special in any way. I was just another instrument of death in the devil's vast arsenal. The souls we reaped were countless, and our servitude was eternal. As I stood there facing my fellow Grim Reaper, the truth dawned on me with chilling clarity. The devil had played us all, and I had fallen into his trap just like the rest. I had willingly embraced my role as the Grim Reaper, only to discover that I was nothing more than a cog in a malevolent machine, a tool in the hands of the ultimate manipulator. And so, we continued our never-ending duty, a legion of Reapers forever enslaved by the devil's cunning. Our existence was a twisted nightmare, our purpose an eternal torment. The darkness had claimed us all, and we were forever bound to our grim fate, reaping souls and serving the devil's inscrutable will for all time.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story revolves around a fighter. What determines a champion? And what dark powers that be make that decision? Is it of glory, legend, or even loyalty? Let's find out. Enjoy, and have a terrifying good night.
I had fought countless battles in the amphitheater Colosseum in Pompeii, but none were as pivotal as the one that marked my doom. My name is Marcus Attilius, the Boundless Gladiator, and I wore that title with pride. The cheers of the crowd, the deafening roars of approval, they all fueled the fire within me. Yet on that fateful day, my flames would be extinguished by a foe unlike any I had ever faced. The sun beat down mercilessly on the sandy arena as I stepped into the center. Across from me stood a colossal adversary, a titan of a man known as Brutus the Unbreakable. The crowd's thunderous applause echoed through the Colosseum, shaking the very earth beneath us. The odds were against me, but I was a mighty gladiator, a symbol of unyielding strength. Brutus charged, swinging his massive sword with a fury I had never encountered. We clashed, metal against metal, as the sun cast long shadows over the blood-soaked sand. Blow after blow rained down upon me, each one sapping my strength. But I fought on, fueled by a determination to win that I had never felt before. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the Colosseum torches flickered to life, Brutus landed a devastating blow. My sword fell from my hand, and I crumpled to my knees. The crowd's cheers turned to hushed murmurs of awe. Brutus raised his sword for the final strike, and with a thunderous swing, my fate was sealed. I awoke in a place of darkness, a realm unlike any I had ever imagined. I was in the Underworld, the domain of Hades, the god of death. The air was heavy with despair, and a sense of hopelessness weighed on my chest. As I look at my wounds in a reflection, they were horrific. I was most obviously dead, for I felt no pain. And then, Hades himself appeared before me, a tall and imposing figure draped in shadow.
Marcus Attilius,
he said, his voice like a cold wind.
you have fought valiantly, and I have been watching. I offer you a choice.
You can accept your fate and descend into the depths of hell, or you can fight for a chance to return to the mortal world.
I looked up at Hades, my voice weak but determined. I will fight. He nodded and pointed toward a massive gate. Beyond it stood a monstrous cyclops, a creature of pure terror.
Defeat my undead champion, and I will revive you, allowing you to return home to the mortal world.
With newfound strength, I stepped through the gate, ready to face the beast. The battle was fierce, a dance of life and death in the Underworld's arena. Just like in my championship fight, I fought with every ounce of strength left in me, but the Cyclops was a formidable foe. In the end, despite my best efforts, I fell before the creature's overwhelming power. As I lay defeated on the searing ground, Hades approached me once more.
Marcus, you fought valiantly against my champion. I enjoyed your tenacity. Instead of sending you to the lowest depths of hell, I have another proposition for you. Join my roster of warriors. One day soon, Hades will pit his best fighters against the mortal world's greatest champions, just to anger Zeus just enough so that he comes down off that precious throne of his, to put an end to the madness. Then, I will erupt the volcano, decimating all of Pompeii, and my brother Zeus with it.
The madness in his eyes were of pure hate. I considered his offer carefully. It was clear now that Hades had rigged my match in the Colosseum to bring me to the Underworld. My path back to the mortal world had been paved with deceit, yet the fire to fight still burned within me, and the chance to challenge the gods themselves was a temptation too great to resist. I agree, I said, my voice filled with resolve. And so, I became a soldier of the Underworld, a gladiator in Hades' service. As I trained alongside other fallen warriors, I couldn't help but wonder what destiny awaited me. In the dark and twisted realm, I had traded the cheers of the mortal world's Colosseum for a chance to challenge the gods of Mount Olympus, all at the whim of the Hades himself.
He is my general. He is my god. As the weeks turned into endless years in the Underworld, I embraced my role as a captain in Hades' army. Countless battles unfolded in the shadowy depths of the realm, each one more harrowing than the last. My comrades were fellow souls who had met untimely ends in the mortal realm, and together, we became a formidable force under Hades' command. With each victory, my loyalty to Hades deepened, and my hatred for Zeus grew stronger. The stories of Zeus, the king of the gods, and his tyranny in the mortal world fueled the fire within me. I saw him as the embodiment of all that was unjust and oppressive, a god who reveled in the suffering of mortals. I began to share Hades' burning desire to undermine Zeus's reign. As I adapted to my new undead immortal form, I discovered that it had its advantages. I felt stronger, faster, and more powerful than I ever had as a mortal. The pain of my wounds, once debilitating, was now a distant memory. The thrill of battle, the taste of victory, it all consumed me. And I began to relish my existence as an undead warrior. With each passing battle, I honed my skills further, becoming a more ruthless and efficient soldier. Hades recognized my dedication and rewarded me with more responsibility. I commanded armies of the damned, leading them in relentless assaults on the celestial forces of Olympus. But it was during one particularly brutal skirmish, as bolts of divine lightning rained down upon us, that I made a chilling discovery. The power of the gods was formidable, but it was not insurmountable. I watched as fellow warriors fell, and I realized that with the right strategy, even gods could be defeated. As I stood amidst the chaos of battle, a dark resolve took hold of me.
My loyalty to Hades was unquestionable, but a new ambition began to simmer beneath the surface. I wanted not only to serve Hades, but to stand beside him as an equal, to help him achieve his ultimate goal, the downfall of Zeus and the overthrow of the oppressive regime of Mount Olympus. In the depths of the underworld, surrounded by the tortured souls and the echoes of countless battles, I plotted and strategized. I knew that my path would be treacherous, fraught with danger and betrayal, but I was willing to risk it all to achieve my newfound purpose. As I looked up at the looming darkness of the underworld, I swore an oath to myself and to Hades. I would become more than a captain in his army. I would become a weapon against the very gods themselves. And in the end, I would see Zeus fall, just as Hades had always desired. The volcano erupting in Pompeii will be my doing, and my God will be pleased. This was why I was chosen. I know my destiny.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Tonight's story will stun your mind. The human species revels in discovery and scientific exploration, ignorant to what will be uncovered. This scientist is a prime example. Let's follow her life and see if we can learn from her circumstance. Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night.
My name is Dr. Emily Carson, and I've always had a fascination with insects. From the moment I caught my first firefly in a jar as a child, I knew that the world of tiny creatures held an irresistible allure for me. As I grew older, my passion for insects turned into a career, and I became an insectologist, specializing in the study of rare insects around Earth. Little did I know that my life would take a bizarre and horrifying turn. Throughout my life, I had encountered numerous obstacles, primarily in the form of coworkers who underestimated me or treated me unfairly. My colleagues belittled my work, my superiors dismissed my research proposals, and even my ex-husband had never fully appreciated my dedication to the world of insects. But I persevered, determined to prove myself as a capable scientist in a field dominated by men. One fateful day in my laboratory, I received a shipment of rare wasp specimens from a remote rainforest. The excitement coursing through me was palpable as I carefully examined the exotic insects. They were stunning, unlike anything I had ever seen before. One particular wasp stood out, an iridescent creature with long, delicate wings and a venomous-looking stinger, a queen of the nest. It was a species no one had ever documented before, and I knew I had to study it intricately. As I leaned in to get a closer look, my hand slipped. The wasp, disturbed by my presence, struck out with its stinger, piercing my skin. Pain coursed through my body, unlike anything I had ever experienced. I fell to the ground, shaking in agony, feeling my body change in ways I couldn't comprehend. I began to alter. Transformation was gradual but undeniable. My skin took on an eerie, translucent quality, and my arms elongated and sharpened into a grotesque semblance of insect limbs. My eyes became multifaceted, and my hair transformed into long, slender antennae. I had become a monstrous hybrid, part woman, part wasp. With my newfound abilities, I felt an insatiable hunger deep within me. I knew the wasp venom had changed me, but it was more than just a physical transformation. My anger and resentment toward the colleagues who had mistreated me had grown into an uncontrollable rage. It was as though the venom had given life to my darkest desires.
Unable to resist the urge any longer, I ventured out into the world. My presence was met with fear and disbelief. People were horrified at the sight of me, but I was beyond caring. I had become a predator, and my prey was clear: the ones who had tormented me throughout my life. My first victim was a former colleague who had plagiarized my research years ago. They had always managed to evade the consequences of their actions, but not this time. I cornered them and unleashed my newfound powers, stinging him with my venomous stinger. As he writhed in pain, I watched with a strange satisfaction as his life was extinguished. One by one, I sought out the humans who had treated me poorly: my ex-husband, my dismissive superiors, and the countless others who had belittled me. With each sting, I absorbed their essence, their very life force, and grew stronger. It was a gruesome transformation, and I reveled in the power I now possessed. Over time, I began to question the darkness that had consumed me. What had I become? I was no longer the passionate scientist I once was, but a monster driven by revenge. The line between my humanity and the wasp creature I had become blurred beyond recognition. Haunted by guilt and remorse, I retreated to my laboratory, the place where it all began. I knew there was no way to reverse the transformation, but I couldn't continue down this path of destruction. With a heavy heart, I turned the venomous stinger on myself, ending my monstrous existence. Or so I thought. As I took my final breath, a strange and unexpected change came over me. My consciousness seemed to expand, and I felt a connection with the very insects I had studied all my life. It was as if they recognized me as their own. And I, in turn, recognized them as my kin. Instead of succumbing to death, I found myself obsessed with a new purpose. I would use my unique abilities to create a hive of humanoid wasps, creatures like myself, but under my control. I would become their queen, guiding them in their mission to protect the fragile balance of the insect world. In my laboratory, I embarked on a series of experiments, using the venom of the rare wasp species to transform unwilling subjects into humanoid wasps. My hive grew in number, and I became their revered leader, a monarch of the insect world. Together, we worked to preserve and protect the intricate web of life that had always fascinated me. My nest will cover this Earth's landmass. They may not recognize me at first, but I will be the world's savior.
Welcome back to A Midnight's Tale. Our story this evening is of sheer desperation and a gleam shining in the darkest parts of the unknown world. How far will one man go to find what he truly seeks? Enjoy and have a terrifyingly good night.
The sun hung low in the sky as I ventured deeper into the heart of the Amazon jungle, my heart pounding in my chest with a mix of excitement and fear. My sole obsession was the lost city of gold, a mythical treasure that had consumed my every thought for years. Legends whispered of unimaginable riches hidden within its ancient walls, and I was willing to risk it all to find it. As days turned into nights and the thick foliage of the jungle surrounded me like a suffocating embrace, the path ahead became a labyrinth. My compass spun erratically, the GPS on my phone useless in this dense tangle of green. With each step, the forest seemed to shift and change, mocking my attempts to navigate its treacherous terrain. I began to hear whispers, voices that echoed in the wind, leading me astray.
One moonless night, I stumbled upon a campfire flickering amidst the trees. My heart skipped a beat as I realized I wasn't alone. Cannibals emerged from the shadows, eyes gleaming with a sinister hunger. My mind raced as I fought to escape, but their arrows found their mark, piercing my flesh and leaving me weakened and bleeding. The pain was excruciating. And as they closed in, I fought with the desperation of a cornered animal. I managed to escape, leaving behind a trail of blood and agony. Days turned into weeks as I trudged on, my body weakened by starvation and infection from the arrow wounds. The jungle seemed to conspire against me, its lush beauty a mask for the horrors it concealed. Through the undergrowth, their cold eyes locking onto mine, ready to strike. Every rustle of leaves sent a jolt of terror through me, as if the very trees were alive and hungry for my demise. Hallucinations plagued my nights, twisting the shadows into monstrous shapes that whispered my name in haunting voices. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart racing, unsure if what I'd seen was real or a product of my tortured mind. The lines between reality and delusion blurred, and I questioned whether the lost city of gold was worth this descent into madness. And then, one fateful day, when I was on the brink of surrender, I stumbled upon a sight that defied belief. Rising from the dense vegetation were ancient pyramids, weathered by time and hidden from the world. The sight filled me with awe and terror in equal measure. Could this be a legendary city I'd risked everything for? The moment I set foot on the steps of that ancient pyramid, I could hardly believe my eyes. The lost city of gold lay before me, a sprawling expanse of glistening statues, pillars, and towering pyramids, each structure adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories of forgotten civilizations. It was a sight that surpassed even my wildest dreams, a treasure beyond imagining. Excitement coursed through my veins as I explored the city, my footsteps echoing off the golden streets. Yet as I wandered deeper, the city's layout grew increasingly bewildering. The paths twisted and turned, leading me in circles that left me disoriented and anxious. Hours stretched into days and days into weeks, yet I remained lost, trapped within an infinite maze of gold. As time wore on, a strange sensation overtook me. My skin began to tingle, a faint metallic sheen starting to emerge. Panic surged through me as I realized what was happening. I was slowly changing, my flesh turning to solid gold. Horror gripped my heart as I saw my reflection in the shimmering walls. My eyes, once filled with determination, now held a glint of despair. Each step grew heavier as my transformation progressed, my body stiffening and growing colder with each passing day. Yet amid the fear and desperation, a strange sense of acceptance settled over me. I could no longer fight the inevitable, and perhaps there was a sort of poetic justice to my fate. I had sought the city's treasures, and now I was becoming a part of them, forever bound to this place. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in a warm golden glow, I found myself in the heart of the maze. The urge to fight had left me, replaced by a strange tranquility. With a heavy heart, I sank to my knees, my joints creaking like metal. I raised my arms in a final act of surrender, my fingers curling into an intricate gesture of respect. As the last rays of sunlight bathed me in their gentle embrace, my skin began to shine with an otherworldly radiance. The transformation was complete. I had become a part of the lost city of gold, a living monument to my own relentless pursuit. A small smile played on my lips as I realized that, in a way, I had achieved what I had set out to do. I had found the city, and in doing so, I had become a part of its legend. I stood frozen in time, a golden figure forever bowing before the city's enigmatic beauty. The jungle's whispers were silenced, replaced by the eternal stillness of the magnificent ancient city. As years turned into centuries,
My story faded into myth, a cautionary tale whispered by those who dared to venture into the heart of the Amazon again. The lost city of gold had claimed another soul, my soul, but this time it was a willing sacrifice.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed tonight's content and you would like more stories, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it.